So I've been growing hydroponically for a long time now, but I have wanted to check out aquaponics. I have grabbed myself a little fish. I picked up this water garden by Back to Roots, and I'm gonna get it out of the box, get it all set up, get him settled into his new home, and then we'll see what we can grow. So according to Back to Roots, this is a self-cleaning cycle aquaponic ecosystem. While regular fish tanks require weekly water changes to keep your fish happy and healthy, the water garden uses an aquaponic self-cleaning cycle, so you don't need to clean the tank as often. So while that sounds great in theory, we're really going to need to test this out to see if it works that well. I'm really curious to see how clean the water is. So the goal for today will just be to get this set up and get him settled in here. And then I'm going to come back in a day or two and plant some of the seeds and get those growing. The one thing that I learned that is shown on the box down there is no gravel that comes in this kit. I went ahead and I ordered a pound of gravel that was specifically for bettas. It has no rough edges because I'm like, a pound of gravel sounds like enough. So that's a pound of gravel. It's not a lot. So seeing as I have my rotundiflora and I wanted something for it to root into, that is why I wanted to get the gravel. But a pound of gravel is not a lot of gravel. So in terms of what you're going to get in here, it's coming with a 3-gallon fish tank, the grow bed, grow pods, water pump, grow medium, organic seeds, but we're going to use our own, water conditioner, and the fish food. This is not a sponsored video. I bought this with my own monies, but I will put a link to it in the description below. This is also not going to be a review because I'm just setting it up. I will do a review on it later after I've had it growing for a while. I just want to show you guys what comes in the box, how to set it up, and to give my fish a new home. And I'm always looking for creative and new ways that we can be growing food ourselves indoors. And this seemed like a great option, especially if you already have a fish or a betta and you want to put them into a new tank. This is a way to grow a little bit more food. So the one thing you need to know is the gravel does not come in this model, even though it looks like it does. The fish makes the poop, and that contains nitrogen. That gets pulled up here by the pump and it feeds through from one side to the other, feeding the plants, and then the cleaned water comes back down. So let's go ahead and get this guy out of the box. All right, so we have a sample of the betta food. It is a trial size. And then we have this liquid betta bowl plus, a water conditioner and dechlorinator. So now I must say the one thing that I have done is I have a 5-gallon bucket of water that was just tap water that has been sitting there for about a week just to make sure that any of the chlorine evaporates before I put it into the tank. But we've got the water conditioner here as well. Next we have welcome to your water garden. It's got all of the setup instructions on how to set it all up. So we'll set that aside for a second because I want to get this out of here. Here we have the tank, and I think that's everything in the box. So we'll get rid of that. There are some handles here, so on the sides, so we can just lift this part out. We'll move that to the side. So we have just the clear tank. It is always good when you're setting up one of these things. I'm just going to go ahead and give everything a rinse. I'm going to go rinse this out. I'm going to rinse out my container, and then we'll explore what comes in the top part of the tank. All right, so all rinsed out. One thing I already noticed is there are grippy little feet. It stops it from moving. I'm shaking the table more than I'm shaking it. But with this gravel, there's actually holes in the bag. So what I did was I cut the top off and I was able to just rinse it and all the water drains out. So I like that too. So what I'm going to do, apart from making a huge mess on my desk, is I'm going to get this into the tank here, hopefully without making too much noise. So that's what you get for a pound of gravel. Probably could have done with 2 of these. I'll probably go ahead and order another one, but at least there is something on the bottom. So we have what they are calling the growing medium. Looks like just some leca pellets. Now, as with anything like this, and I'm sure they're going to say it in the instructions as soon as I look at them, you're always going to want to really give this a good rinse. We do not want to be introducing all of the grit into the tank. We also don't want to be introducing the grit into the pump. So I'm going to go give this a good rinse in a minute. But first of all, just want to see what else we have in here. So we have some tubing. We have our pump, just a little guy. We have some sort of clip, a foamy whatnot, We have some radish microgreens. So yeah, I think this would probably be good for growing the microgreens. What else do we have? We have some wheatgrass seeds. So then we have the pods where the leca is going to go, and they kind of just notch in together. This is, I think, at least the second version of this tank. I did have one years and years ago. A little fiddly, but they all fit together in there like that. There is a hole. There's another hole over there. So we're going to have to figure out how all this lines up. So we have all the bits now to figure out how this thing goes together. So again, they're telling you to rinse everything out, which I've already rinsed the tank, but I'm gonna go rinse all of this stuff, as well as the leca. All right, so now we are going to assemble the pump. So we take the pump clip, we're going to put that into the tubing, just making sure it goes all the way up. There's some ridges in there to hold it in place. And then we have the pump. The one thing to remember, so this is the part that's going to clip onto the tank. So you're going to want that to be on the same side as your suction cups. The suction cups are facing down, and we want the clip to be facing down as well. And I will just push that right on. So clip on this side, suction cups on this side. So over here on the tank, there is a notch. That is where the clip is going to fit into. What we'll do is we will fit the clip in there, and then I will get this sectioned to the wall. And then it has on here, looks like a place for the cord to go, so that it can come out of the tank. All right, so the next step is to get the water in here, and this is where the grow deck goes to, where it kicks out here, and we want to get the water in there about an inch below that to start. Got mason jar, and I'm just going to use this to fill up the tank. So next up is to get the fish in the tank. He's in a little plastic container, so this might be a little trickier for me. If it's in a bag, it's easier because you can just put him in and it will just float in there. And basically we need to leave them in there for about 15 minutes like that, 15 to 20. You just want the temperature of the water in the container to come to the same temperature as the water that is in the tank. If you've had the water sitting out like I did for a week, it should be good, but best not to skip a step because we don't want to hurt our fish. So we will just leave him there and let him get acclimated to the water. All right, so it's been 15 minutes. I'm going to see about putting some of this dechlorinator in. Shake well, add 5 mils for every 1 gallon of temperature adjusted tap water. Well, there's only 10 mils in here and it's a 3-gallon tank, which is kind of weird why they only give you 3 mils, but I guess we're dumping it all in. And then I have to finish putting together the top grow deck so that we can get this all situated in there. But I'm going to let him free. So he's getting situated there. I'm going to go ahead and keep setting this up. So the next thing we need to do is there is a slot in the center here, and this sponge is going to go in that spot. And we are going to squish this in. So I have that settled in there. All right, so I'm gonna come in. Can I go like, oh, even better. You don't even have to go in at an angle. That went way easier than I was expecting. Kudos to Back to Roots for that. All right, now that that is set there, I need to get these on here. All right, so there are 3 of them, and there is the little hole right here. So I'm going to go over and show you on the tank, but there's actually a hole where we need to align this up to, and that I'm assuming is where we're going to feed said fish through. So we are going to want to line it up over this hole so that when fishy is in there, we can feed him. I will just clip on like that, and then we'll take the next one, and they just kind of notch in together, and then we can see right through into the tank, and that's where we will feed him. And then the last one, whoops, is going to go on like that. Okay, there we go. Now I've got it settled in right. So these ones weren't quite in right, so when this is on properly, it's gonna just be grabbing onto the grow deck underneath. So a little bit fiddly. So the deck sits up a little bit higher. So these are actually grabbing onto the deck. You're not trying to get it over the loop here. All right, so that's all humming away. And then what I'm gonna need to do is I do need to get the water level up a bit now. And but before I do that, I'm gonna get these filled up with the leca pellets. So those are all the leca pellets in here. I've just been swishing them around. It said to rinse them in hot water, and then you're going to want to put about 3/4 of a cup in each one of these. So I'm going to get that in there. You can see the water level has come up already. Everything seems to be working well. Okay, try not to drop them all over the floor. So far I've done about 3 handfuls in each. And it is super important to rinse this like they say. When I dumped it out into the bucket, there was a huge plume of dust, which you don't want to breathe in, but also you definitely don't want floating around in the tank, because I'm assuming it's not going to be good for the fish, and it's definitely not going to be good for your pump. So make sure you give these a good rinse in hot water before you are putting them in the tank, but let the water cool down before you put them in, because you don't want to burn your hand or your fish. That is all of those filled up. You guys know I love my YarGarden water jug. I'm just going to use it to top up the rest of the water that we need in the tank to bring it up to the bottom of the grow deck. So I'm just going to leave this to run for a bit, and then tomorrow I'm going to pop in the seeds. We will give their seeds a try. We use the radish microgreens and the wheatgrass, but we will also put 2 of the micro hat tomatoes in the middle, and we will see how everything grows. Can you guys hear that? It's been a few days, and I always like to give things a chance to kind of settle and observe and see what's going on. Well, the only thing I've been observing is that this thing is freaking noisy. And the water trickling is driving me a little bit nuts, but I have a solution. So there it is, trickling away in all its glory. We haven't put any seeds in. I'm going to do that today. We have the wheatgrass, we have the radish microgreens, and my beloved micro hat tomato, or orange hat tomato. But first, I need to show you guys what I figured out to stop the trickling, because maybe it's soothing for some people, but that is not soothing for me. So that is the culprit right there. The water's just trickling in and falling down, and it's just making quite a bit of noise. Enter in this little piece of sponge. So all I'm gonna do is kind of just put that in front. See, already it's quiet. I'm gonna put this back in, and it's quiet. It's a sponge, so I'm not seeing any problems, but I guess we'll find out over a little bit more time. But it's quiet. The water can still get through, and I'm not going to lose my damn mind. We need to get these seeds planted. So I think first I'm going to do the orange hat tomato. I'm thinking I'm going to put that in the center. I'm going to put in 2 seeds. Then we'll do the wheatgrass on one side and the radish microgreens on the other. All right, so I got my 1 seed. Just going to pop that somewhere in there. Down there he is. And then we'll take the other seed and we'll pop that there. That guy's on top. He's easier to see. For the radish microgreens, I'm going to sow them pretty heavily. This one does not require too much precision. Just kind of sprinkle them all in here, and then I guess we'll see what happens. For the wheatgrass seeds, going to do the same thing. Sow them heavily. These guys are a lot bigger. And we'll just dump those into the other side. So there we have it. The radish microgreens, the 2 orange hat tomatoes, a whole bunch of wheatgrass seeds. We'll check back in a little bit and see how these are growing. But more importantly, it's quiet. All right, so it's been 10 days. And look at this growth. Microgreens are growing like crazy. The wheatgrass has started doing stuff as well. And even down in there, I can see some happenings with at least one of the tomatoes. I'm just gonna go ahead and feed this guy in the hole. These guys are growing really quickly. I'm gonna be harvesting some of these radish microgreens pretty soon. And if you notice, it's very quiet thanks to that piece of foam I put in there, because otherwise this thing is quite noisy.